So here we are, the last part of the presentation, which is the senses. The senses of the nervous system, which has two major groups, the special senses and the general senses. Special senses have specialized sense organs and include, for the vision, are the eyes, of course, hearing are ears, balance, ears also, taste is the tongue, and smell is your nose or the nasal passages. Special senses are specialized only located at the head region of the human body. Taste, smell, sight, hearing, and balance are the special sensory receptors, which has large complex organs like eyes and ears. We have localized cluster of receptors such as taste buds, and as I said a while ago that it is because it is special senses, it is confined only into the head region of the human body. First is the eyes. Eyes is the visual organs for the special senses of seeing or the sight. 70% of all sensory receptors are in the eyes, while 40% of the cerebral cortex is involved in processing visual information. So this is the accessory structures of the eyes. First is the lacrimal apparatus. Lacrimal apparatus keeps the surface of the eyes moist. Is to produce tears, channel them to the surface of the eye where they maintain moisture and flush debris and waste materials. So this is this lacrimal apparatuses. No? First, we see the lacrimal gland here. Lacrimal gland continually releases fluid which cleanses and protects the eye surface as it lubricates and moistens it. These lacrimal secretions are commonly known as tears. Lacrimal gland is responsible para mag-create ng fluid sa ating mata para ma-maintain yung moisture ng ating eyes. Next is the excretory ducts of lacrimal gland. Here. No? Dito. Okay. It removes 90% of the lacrimal fluid and the remainder evaporates between blinks. And the lacrimal punctum, if it is singular, puncta is the plural form. It acts like little valves. Yung butas dito, here. Yung butas dito yung tinutusok pag nag-ajay ag kurkurikor nga iti matanok. Ito yung tinutusok dito. To take tears out of the eyes. Each time we blink, some tears fluid is pumped out of the eye through the puncta of the eyes. Here. Ito tumutulong din to para mag-remove ng excess tears, excess fluid sa mata. Okay, the next is lacrimal canalicus. Here, itong passage dito. Canalicus if it is singular and canaliculi for its plural form. It is the small channels in each eyelid that drain lacrimal fluid from the lacrimal puncta lacrimal punctua to lacrimal canaliculi to the lacrimal sac. Here the lacrimal sac that drains fluid from the surface of the eye at the nasal cavity. This is the nasal cavity, no? So, kung napapansin nyo pag umiiyak tayo, may kasabay na sipon. And that's because the lacrimal canalicus drains out the water or the fluid, excess fluid that comes from our eyes to the nasal cavity. So, kaya pag minsan nagkakaroon tayo ng sipon kapag umiiyak tayo. And the nasal cremal duct or the tear duct. O here, the tear duct, no? Dito dumidiretso yung fluid. That's why lumalabas sa ilong natin kapag umiiyak tayo. And that's it. And next, we have the accessory structures of the eyes again. Pa rin. First is the eyelids. Eyelids is the anterior protection. Provides protection to the cornea. Blinking reflexively for protection, lubrication, and comfort. Kung napapansin nyo kapag matagal na hindi nag-blink yung mata natin is nai-irritate, no? Nagdra-dry out yung mata natin. That's why yun yung function ng eyelid to provide protection and comfort para mapanatili yung moisture, maging equal yung moisture ng mata. Eyelashes. Eyelashes is the first line of defense for your eyes, keeping airborne dirt, dust, lint, and other debris from reaching the delicate eye tissues. Eyelashes, parang yung hair sa ilong, no? Bago finifiltrate niya yung mga debris, yung mga pollutant yung mga dumi para hindi makapasok sa mata natin or para maiwasang pumasok sa mata natin. Next is the meibomian glands. Modified as sebaceous glands at eyelid edges. It secretes oily lubricant for the eye. Meibomian glands are tiny oil glands which line the margin of the eyelid edges. These glands secrete oil which coats the surface of our eyes and keeps the water components of our tears from drying out at once. So, hindi lang water ang nagbo-moisten sa mata natin. May kasamang oil para hindi mabilis mag-evaporate when we blink. Next is the ciliary glands. Ciliary glands are located between eyelashes, between the two, the up and down eyelashes. It is also a modified sweat glands. Secrete lipid that adds to the superficial layer of the tear film, retarding evaporation. It is found in the margin of the eyelid, next to the base of the eyelashes, and anterior to the meibomian glands. Next is the conjunctiva. Conjunctiva is a delicate membrane that lines eyelids and covers part of eye, fuses with corneal epithelium, secretes mucus to keep eyes moist. Conjunctiva provides protection and lubrication of the eye by the production of mucus and tears. Mucus or uhog, kung tawagin sa Tagalog. It prevents microbial entrance into the eye and plays a role in immune surveillance. Next are the eye movement, how our eyes move. So, kung ang ulo natin ay may atlas at axis para mag-move, ang eye naman natin ay may mga external muscles na nagko-control para mag-move. The superior rectus, elevating the eye, causing the eye to move upward. O pag naglalagay kayo ng eyeliner ba tawag doon? O diba you need to move your eyes upward para makalagay sa lower part ng eyelashes, ng lower eyelashes, sorry. And next is the inferior rectus here. Moves the eye downward. O pag sa baba naman ang tingin, no, na hindi ginagalaw yung mukha, yung ulo, yung mata lang ang gumagalaw pababa. So the lateral rectus I should say, it is an abductor and moves the eye laterally, straight, side to side. It is next is the medial rectus, inward. Medial rectus, it is an adductor. If lateral rectus is an abductor, the medial rectus is an adductor. It moves the eye inward, and the lateral rectus and medial rectus are responsible to the eyes to move from side to side. Yeah. Everybody look to the left. The inferior oblique externally rotates, elevates, and abducts the eyes upward and outward. O, ayan, pag umiirap kayo, nagkukusilap sa Ilocano. Ito yung gumagalaw, ito yung gumagana, nagpapagalaw sa mata. And lastly, the superior oblique, to move the eye in the down and out position and intart the eye downward and outward. That's the controlled by 6 external muscles, the eye movements. Next is internal structure of the eye. The eye itself is a hollow sphere. Fluid fills most of the inside of the eye, so that to maintain its shape. Without fluid, your eyeballs would collapse like a beach ball. Na-imagine nyo, beach ball without air. Flat na beach ball, no? Yung natitiklop. Eyes have 3 main internal layers. First is the fibrous tunic. It is the outermost layer of the eye. Which consists of the sclera and the cornea. Sclera is the white outer coating of the eye. Sclera gives the eyeball its white color. Sclera yung responsible kung bakit may white ang eyeballs natin. Sclera also protects the eyeball by controlling how much light enters the eye by changing the size of the pupil in partnership with iris. Magkakampas sila ni iris para ma-protect yung cornea ay yung eyeball sa excess light na receive. Next is the cornea. It acts as the structural barrier and protects the eye against infections. That's yan. Anterior transparent window. And limbus is the site of surgical incisions for cataract and glaucoma. Kung nakakapanood kayo ng video ng operations ng cataract, no? Yung white na parang sac, that's the limbus. So next is the scleral venous sinus. It collects aqueous humor and drains out it. So allows aqueous humor to drain. Next, okay, I didn't see the cursor. Next is the So, konting kaalaman lang, no? The aqueous humor is the clear, watery fluid that bathes and nourishes the lens and maintains pressure within the eye. So, the middle layer that is responsible for nourishment is the vascular tunic, which consists of the iris choroid and the ciliary body. First is the choroid. It supplies the outer retina with nutrients and maintains the temperature and volume of the eye. Vascular darkly pigmented membrane. It is brown color because of the melanocytes, which is the cells that gives melanin. Prevents scattering of light rays within the eye. Choroid corresponds to the arachnoid and pia meters. Next is the ciliary body. Sorry, nabobulol na ako. Puro may R, no? It changes the shape of the lens when the eye focuses. Attachment to lens and iris, no? Iris is smooth muscle fibers that act like the diaphragm of a camera. It controls the amount of light that enters the eye by opening and closing the pupil. It associates with the sclera, as I said a while ago, kung tandaan nyo. Pupil opens to let light in. And the inner, so as you can see, dilation, ito yung dilated pupil. Nangyayari ang dilated pupil kapag there is no light. Nagko-contract yung pupil kapag darkness lang yung nakikita niya. And this is the normal pupil. It relaxes when there is light. Okay, next. And the inner layer, the innermost layer of the eyes is the sensory tunic. It is composed of two layers. The pigmented layer is a single layer of melanocytes, which are cells that produce melanin, and the neural layer, sheet of nervous tissue. Neural layer contains three main types of neurons: the photoreceptor cells, which are under on it are the rod cells. It is more sensitive to light, allow vision in dim light. The cone cells operate best in bright light, enable high acuity and color vision. Next is the bipolar cell. Only neurons that connect the outer retina to the inner retina. The ganglion cells collect information about the visual world. That's it. Where's the cursor? Next, we have the lens. It is a thick, transparent, biconvex disc held in place by its ciliary zonule. Ciliary zonule, for your information, keeps centering the lens on the optical axis. It keeps the lens on its place. So here, the homeostatic imbalance. It occurs when cells in the body experience a deficiency or when cells are exposed to toxins. First is the color blindness. Color blindness, it occurs when molecules that cone-shape cells that detect color ay wala or missing or nasira. But it can be inherited from your ancestors cause the faulty pigment colors. Next is the cataracts. Lens becomes hard and opaque due to age. Most cataracts develop when aging or injury changes the tissue that makes up the eye's lens. Proteins and fibers in the lens begin to break down, causing vision to become hazy or cloudy. Next is the glaucoma. Increased pressure in eyes due to lack of drainage for aqueous humor. Glaucoma is the result of damage to the optic nerve. So next is the light and focus of the eye. Structures in the eye bend light rays. This said structure is the cornea. The cornea structure of the eye bend, refract, and allow light. Light rays converge on the retina at a single focal point. Light bending structures, refractory or the refractory media, the lens, the cornea, and the humors. Accommodation of eyes in the light curvature of the lens is adjustable. So I was said allows for focusing through the ciliary body, allows for focusing on nearby objects or focusing into objects through ciliary body. Next is the homeostatic imbalance. This is an age-related macular degeneration or AMD. It involves the buildup of visual pigments in the retina. Ayan, no? Kikita nyo dun sa pictures, no? Meron siyang build-up ng visual pigments here. Ayan. Next is the retinopathy in diabetes. Retinopathy is a disease of the retina. Vessels have weak walls, causes hemorrhaging and blindness. Ayan. Pumuputok siya, no? Or napupunit. That's why may hemorrhaging. May nangyayaring inflammation. May nangyayaring pagkalat ng dugo from the blood vessels na pumutok or napunit. So this is the visual pathways to the brain. Each side of the brain receives images from both eyes. Each eye sees a slightly different view, but visual fields overlap. This gives us binocular vision. The next is the ear for hearing and balance. Ear is the receptor organ for hearing and equilibrium or balance, composed of three main regions. The outer ear, the function of it is in hearing because it collects sound waves and channels them into the ear canal. Outer ear, ito tong nasa labas mismo, no? Middle ear functions also in hearing because it carries sound waves from the outer ear to the inner ear. Next, and lastly, the inner ear functions in both hearing and equilibrium. Helps you hear and keep your balance. The outer or external ear, the part we think of as the ear, yung nakikita natin here. Ito yon. Helps direct sounds. External acoustic meatus here is a canal lined with skin. Di ba merong mga balabalahibo dyan pag kakapanood tayo ng videos na nag-earwax or kapag nasa salamin tayo tapos nakikita natin here. Contains hairs, sebaceous glands, and ceruminous glands that secrete yellow wax. So here, the second one is the tympanic membrane here. Forms the boundary between the external and the middle ear here, the middle ear. Okay. Next, the tympanic cavity Where's the cursor? Here is a small air-filled space located within the petrous portion of the temporal bone. Contains ossicles which are the malleus or the hammer, insus or the anvil, and stapes or the stirrup that transmit vibration from eardrum to fluids of inner ear. Medial wall is penetrated by oval window and round window. Pharyngotympanic tube or the ear links the middle ear and the pharynx. Next, the inner or internal ear. Inner ear, also called the bony labyrinth. Bony labyrinth, why? It's because it's a labyrinth full of bones. Char lang. Lies within the petrous portion of the temporal bone behind the eye socket. Cavity consisting of three parts: the semicircular canals, vestibule, and cochlea. The inner or internal membranous labyrinth, series of membrane-walled sacs and ducts within the bony labyrinth. Consists of three main parts: the semicircular ducts, here, the anterior, the posterior, and the lateral semicircular ducts. Atrial and saccule, here, the atrial and the saccule vestibule, and the cochlear duct. What's the cochlear duct? Cochlear duct. Here, the cochlear duct, the spiral thing in this one. Filled with a clear membranous labyrinth is filled with a clear fluid endolymph and confined to the membranous labyrinth. Endolymph. Endolymph is a potassium. No. What's the name? Here. Bony labyrinth is filled with perilymph or continuous with cerebrospinal fluids. The vestibule. The central part of the bony labyrinth, actually a cavity. Yun. Vestibule. Here's the vestibule. Lies medial to the air, atrial and saccule. Atrial, this is the atrial, and the saccule suspended in perilymph, two egg-shaped parts of the membranous of the membranous labyrinth. House the macula. A spot of sensory epithelium that contains receptor cells. Monitor the position of the head when still. Contains columnar supporting cells, receptor cells called hair cells, and synapse with the vestibular nerve. The semicircular canals. Semicircular ducts snakes through each semicircular canal. Membranous ampulla located within bony ampulla. Houses a structure called membranous ampulla houses a structure called a crista ampullaris. It is responsible for maintaining static equilibrium or balance. The cochlea, a spiraling chamber in the bony labyrinth, contains receptors for hearing. And disorders of equilibrium and hearing. First is the motion sickness. Motion sickness, also known as car sickness or seasickness, is popular theory for cause a mismatch of sensory inputs. It caused by repeated motion from a vehicle or any other movements that disturb the inner ear. Like for example, you are experiencing nausea or vomiting when the car moves, or when the car moves, even in turbulence of the airplanes. Next is the Meniere's syndrome or equilibrium is greatly disturbed. Excessive amounts of endolymph in the membranous labyrinth. So this is the normal here. This is the normal amounts of endolymph. Endolymph is a potassium here. And this is with Meniere syndrome. Ayan, no? Excessive, no? Sobrang dami. Pagkakaiba. The normal and with the disorder. And next is the deafness. Deaf or pingy, I think. Conduction deafness. Sound vibrations cannot be conducted to the inner ear. Ruptured tympanic membrane, otitis media, or otosclerosis. This is the normal tympanic membrane. Kikita nyo, it's whole. This one is the ruptured tympanic or napunit na wall ng membrane. And this is the inflamed or infected tympanic membrane. Namamaga siya, no? So you can see, grabe yung maga niya. Next. Deafness is a sensory neural deafness. Kind of deafness, I think, results from damage to any part of the auditory pathway. Kita nyo yung pagkakaiba. Grabe yung damage here. Halos wala nang natira. Next, the chemical senses, taste and smell. Taste receptors occurs in taste buds. Most are found on the surface of the tongue, located within tongue papillae or in the circumvallate and fungiform. Here, yung bilog-bilog sa may dulo. Collection of 50 to 100 epithelial cells contain three major cell types: supporting cells, gustatory cells that respond to chemicals in saliva, contain long microvilli, I think, extend through a taste pore, and the basal cell. Here, the fungiform papillae. Next is the four basic qualities of taste. Sweet responds to sugars and amino acids. Sour respond to hydrogen ions or acidity. Salty respond to metals. Bitter responds to alkaloids. No structural difference among taste buds. Gustatory pathway. Taste information reaches the cerebral cortex, primarily through the facial and glossopharyngeal nerves. Some taste information through the vagus nerve. Sensory neurons synapse in the medulla, located in the solitary nucleus. Smell or olfaction. Receptors occupy a post-stage stump 6 area in the roof of each nasal cavity. Olfactory receptor cells, neurons with olfactory hairs that transmit to the olfactory nerve. So next is the we finish the special senses, which are the sight, smell, balance, hearing, which special only located at the head of every human being. And here is the general senses. General senses are also associated with touch and lack special sense organs. Touch receptors are found throughout the body, but particularly in the skin. Specialized peripheral. First is the specialized peripheral sensory neurons, known as nociceptors. Alert us to potentially damaging stimuli at the skin by detecting extremes By detecting extremes in temperature and pressure and injury-related chemicals and transducing these stimuli into long-ranging electrical signals that are relayed to higher brain centers. Next, nociceptors are sensory receptors that detect signals from damaged tissue or the threat of damage and indirectly also respond to chemicals released from the damaged tissues. Next is the thermoceptors. Thermoceptors are free nerve endings that reside in the skin. So now we move on into the second major group of senses, which is the general senses. General senses are all associated with touch and lack of special sense organs. In short, general senses are found throughout the body but particularly in the skin. Hindi katulad ni special senses, nasa special part lang siya, which is the head. And first is the nociceptors. Specialized peripheral sensory neurons known as nociceptors alert us to potentially damaging stimuli at the skin by detecting extremes in temperature and pressure and injury-related chemicals and transducing these stimuli into long-ranging electrical signals that are relayed to higher brain centers. Sensory receptors that detect signals from damaged tissues or the threat of damage and indirectly also respond to chemicals released from the damaged tissues. Just like kapag nasugatan tayo, pag na-scratchan tayo, diba? Yun yung receptors na nagsasend ng signals kung saan banda yung nasugatan. Next is the thermoceptors are free nerve endings that reside in the skin, liver, and skeletal muscles and in the hypothalamus, with cold thermoceptors 3.5 times more common than heat receptors. Thermoreceptors able to detect changes in temperature in the skin and also in the walls of internal organs. Thermoreceptors also able to detect heat and cold and are found throughout the skin in order to allow sensory reception throughout the body. The location and number of thermoreceptors will determine the sensitivity of the skin to the temperature changes. It is designed to trigger and creates an action potential based on hot and cold temperatures. Next is the mechanoreceptors, are a type of somatosensory receptors which relay extracellular stimulus to intracellular signal transduction through mechanically gated ion channels. The external stimuli are usually in the form of touch, pressure, stretching, sound waves, and motions. It is also an important receptor class for the somatosensory system. These receptors have a well-known role in tactile feedback from the skin and the skeletal system, which is essential for human development and sensation. Next is the chemoreceptors. It is a specialized cell groups responsible for acquiring information about the chemical environment and subsequently conveying the information to neurons. Chemoreceptors are designed to detect molecules that are dissolved in fluid. They are sensors that detect changes in CO2, O2, and the pH level and have been classified based upon anatomical location as either central or peripheral. Our blood vessels have chemoreceptors that are able to detect the chemical content of your body fluid and then provide feedback to your nervous system. And that's it. We hope that you gain some knowledge and understand what we are saying, what we are presenting. And take note for this. To sum up our presentation, the nervous system is the master controlling and communicating system of the body, and that conclude its functions in receiving sensory input, integrating information, controlling muscles and glands, maintaining also homeostasis or the stability of the body, and serving as the center of mental activity. As the cells of the nervous system function well, which is the histology of the nervous system, as neurons receive stimuli and conduct action, glial cells are the support cells of the nervous system, and myelin sheath. Excuse me. Nervous system is divided into two major systems. First, the central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord, and the second major part that consists of nerves outside the central nervous system is the peripheral nervous system. Also is subdivided into two structures: the autonomic nervous system that has parasympathetic and sympathetic divisions, and the second structure of autonomic nervous system under the peripheral is the somatic nervous system that involves the sensory function and motor functions. And part 3 was the disorders affecting the nervous system. First, the disorder under the neuromuscular junction are myasthenia gravis and Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome. Second are the disorder under the nerves. We have 12 identified diseases, namely Alzheimer's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, carpal tunnel syndrome, epilepsy, Huntington's disease, migraine, Parkinson's disease, amnesia, agnosia, cerebral palsy, aphasia, and visual neglect, and many other more diseases. Third are disorders under the spinal cord are the spinal tetraplegia and spinal paraplegia. And lastly, the later part are the senses, which has two major groups, and they are the general senses, which are active in all body parts of the body, and the special senses that are specialized, located only in the head of a human being. And that's it. I hope you listen well, and thank you for listening. Please be vaccinated so that we can hold a face-to-face class now, and keep safe always. Thank you.